Hello, and welcome to this episode of Women in Engineering, success stories from STEM professionals. Today, and in honor of International Women in Engineering Day, coming up on June 23rd, I'm thrilled to sit down with Kimberly Hardy, Esquire, Senior Vice President for Diversity, Inclusion, and Compliance at McKissack. We'll be talking about the impact of diversity and inclusion in engineering, its integration into major projects, and effective strategies to enhance diversity in traditionally male-dominated industries. I am your host, Tiffany Teachy, a senior mechanical engineer, STEM advocate, TEDx international speaker, and an internationally recognized author of children's books, including What Can I Be? STEM Careers from A to Z, as well as STEM Crew Kids Adventure Series. I also host the Read It Right radio show on WDRB Media, owner of Thrive Edge Publishing, and owner publishing consultant of Inspired Authors Publishing. And with that, let's jump right into today's episode. Today, I have with me Kimberly Hardy, Esquire. Kimberly, welcome to the Women in Engineering podcast.
Hi, Tiffany. It's great to be here with you today.
Yes. Well, let's jump right into it.
Great.
Kim, since you said you love to be called Kim, can you start by telling us a bit more about yourself and what led you to your current role as Senior Vice President of Diversity, Inclusion, and Compliance Services?
Oh, well, that's an interesting path, Tiffany. You know, I am a graduate of a historically Black college. And I ultimately went to Yale Law School. Followed by that, I did have a career in law and practiced at one of the largest international firms. And then I moved over to government and held several executive positions in government. I also have served as a construction integrity monitor, which is really a managing director monitoring construction projects. My focus was ensuring that projects and the companies that the government hired on those projects complied with laws like the Minority and Women Business Enterprise Program, like certain prevailing wage programs to ensure that people are paid appropriate wages. And then ultimately, I helped New York City manage its Minority and Women Business Enterprise Certification Program and some other certification programs that New York City has. And ultimately, that led me to this fantastic position that I have with McKissack and McKissack. McKissack and McKissack, as you and your listeners may know, is the nation's oldest construction-related firm owned by Black people. Our current president and CEO is Cheryl McKissack, who's an engineer by her training and has run this business. And the family's business, their legacy is over 100 years old. So, you know, I am the first senior vice president for diversity, inclusion, and compliance at McKissack. But McKissack, of course, has been in the business of ensuring diversity, insurance, and compliance for decades.
What is the biggest challenge you faced in promoting diversity and inclusion in traditionally male-dominated industries like engineering and construction?
Well, you know, that is a really tough question. You know, we're seeing more women in engineering. However, most of the top positions still go to the men. And I want to say that in terms of being challenging, I think for us, we work on a number of projects where, again, we really are trying to ensure that we have enough women participate on projects and that we meet whatever mandates or business objectives there are for that. And in doing so, we find that sometimes we're actually called to the table to assist too late. So it's always better when our firm is there in the beginning. So what does in the beginning mean? It really means before there is a selection of vendors, of engineering firms, that people are thinking about how women-owned firms and even how all firms can have more women at the table. So we want to look at our procurement documents. We want to talk about the selection process. We don't want to wait until all of the contracts are handed out. And so sometimes the biggest challenge can be getting in there at that early point where we can be the most impactful, because we're really helping to set the stage on how vendors are selected on a project.
And that's good. Now, when you mentioned about projects, let's go deeper with it. Can you tell us about a particular project where you successfully enhance diversity and inclusion?
Well, listen, I have to say McKissack has a long history of helping to ensure the inclusion of minorities and women-owned firms on projects, particularly, but not only, but particularly across New York. One of our current projects that we're working on is for the new Terminal 1 at JFK. This is a $9.5 billion project that McKissack was brought in very early as part of the proposal team. And so for this project, we really have been able to build out the diversity program for the client so that it has over $1 billion in awards to minority and women-owned firms. A staggering high number of those contracts are going to people of color, women of color, and all women. And it's really across all different industries for the program, which makes it very exciting. Certainly construction, but design and engineering. Well over 60 firms, or MWB firms, that is, are participating on this project. So it's an enormous undertaking. It's in the second year of construction. And we're really just very excited to work with a client that really has put diversity at the forefront and has allowed us to really design and implement in some ways best practices to ensure that there is a diverse participation, particularly in the A&E front.
Love it. Now, we're good for acronyms when it comes to the industry. Can you tell people what the, MW, can you break that down, what that stands for?
MWBE, that's for Minority and Women Business-Owned Enterprises.
Yes. Okay.
And then, of course, architectural and engineering. I know your audience is filled with architects and engineers, so I know you know that one.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Well, definitely want to continue to the conversation. How have changes in regulation or laws impacted your work in compliance and diversity over the years?
Well, we, it's interesting. I think I might look at it a different way. I mentioned earlier that, every day we're reading about possible attacks on a lot of the diversity, equity, inclusion type programs in various settings, whether it's in education or in other types of accommodations. And so there's real concern within the supplier diversity world that there may be some rollbacks in terms of these great efforts many states like New York have made, and the federal government itself, to ensure that we help not only disadvantaged business owners, but business owners that are in fact minority and women owned. And so, it's very important for people to really galvanize and to lend their voice to show support that these programs don't go away, because they really are the best way for us to get a foothold and to continue to have a foothold on certain projects, particularly those government-controlled projects. So we want to ensure that there's a pathway for women to succeed in terms of the regulatory front. And there's been a lot of movement in New York about discretionary payments. And what does that mean? That means, for instance, many years ago, one could have a little more flexibility in selecting a firm of its choice at a very low level. We've seen that those levels are rising, and when the administrators are given that ability to select firms, still through a competitive process, but you're able to really direct and try to remedy some of the historic wrongs, and you're able to select women engineering firms. So we want to ensure that there are that type of legislation, it stays in place. So now we're really trying to ensure that we don't have any losses. We don't want to go backwards.
Right. Got to go forward, and definitely with the support that's needed. I love to hear that that's going on because it's needed.
Now, and I would just also add that certainly our CEO, Cheryl McKissack, has really been a strong advocate for MWBE participation, not only here in New York, but throughout the nation, as we are working in other states as well. So is just so important.
That's good. That's good. And that's what people need to hear, that, that there's support, like you said, from the top once again. And that's
absolutely. No, absolutely.
Hear the leadership is out there supporting it. So I love to hear that. Now let's talk about motivation. What personally motivates you to advocate for diversity and inclusion within the technical and engineering fields?
Well, I like to help people at the core. At the core of it, it's really helping people. And throughout my career, I've had roles where people have come to me for advice and guidance on how to navigate systems, how to manage relationships. And this, I think, is accumulation of that work that I've done. And it really just allows me to help people. And people need help. Firms need help. We know that here in New York City, the hardest kind of element for business owners that are interested in doing work in New York City, New York State, is to get that first contract. Once they get that first contract and they succeed, they're more likely to get additional work. But getting that first contract is hard, and people actually need guidance. Even the most sophisticated business owners that may have had very successful, say, corporate careers, when they go out on their own, they sometimes have a hard time just navigating the system for government work. So at McKissack, we certainly can help people navigate those systems. At the same time, we have corporations that don't know where to start. They have many relationships, but they don't necessarily have relationships with the minority business owners or contractors, engineers. They don't know women engineers. So we help to bring companies together so that they can build upon relationships and continue to work together. And it's very important for minorities and women in particular to have that opportunity to build a relationship.
It's good.
Because that we have to pause on some of the old networks and begin to create new networks so that women fully participate.
I love it. That's good. Get rid of the old networks to the new networks and building that relationship. I think that's key. And like you said, the starters, if you can get their foot in the door, then it allows them to build their portfolio. They just need that to get going. So I love that that's what you shared as far as doing that. Now let's talk about future developments. What future developments do you see or hope to see in the area of diversity and inclusion within the construction and engineering sectors?
Yeah, I'm very interested in ensuring within, particularly for MWBE programs, historically there has been some disparity within who's getting the contracts, even though people are categorized as MWBEs. So I think it's very important to make sure that we have an equitable distribution and to ensure that all ethnic groups, and as it relates to women, that women of color and other women, of course, that they all have an opportunity to participate. And again, it really does go back to relationships. So we want to ensure that we can make introductory relationships that yield successful work arrangements, and that MWBEs, like McKissack, can go on to flourish and have great success and have repeat clients with those relationships. And then, that's I guess that's the preferred way of saying it. But ultimately, when you're talking about government work, it's often, ensuring people are meeting their legal mandates.
Mm-hmm. That's important.
So to get back to your real question was, I'm very focused on ensuring that there's diversity within the diversity world and that we're all able to succeed.
That's good. That's good. Now let's go to strategy. What strategy will you recommend to firms aiming to enhance their diversity and inclusion efforts?
I get that question almost daily, and it's very important for firms to take advantage of the many resources that are available, particularly to small and emerging firms. During COVID, we all learned how to go online and to have our podcasts and our webinars. And there are many opportunities to learn how to get a foothold right here online, so you can do it in the comfort of your office. Certainly, you should still try to network in person when you can. But when you're a small business owner, time is money for all of us. But for small business owners, you may not have the time to leave your work and to spend 4 hours commuting and networking in person. So, take advantage of what's online, a wealth of information that you can review at your own pace. A lot of webinars that I know our office participates are, we post online so one can look at them at midnight or at 6 a.m. if they can't make it at the allotted time. So use your resources, and you have to be aggressive. No one's going to give you any business. You have to go after that business. So I would just say network, and
be aggressive as far as showing that you want it.
Absolutely.
I love it. Now, as we close out, finally, what piece of advice will you offer to engineers, both emerging and established, and who want to contribute positively to diversity and inclusion in their workplace?
Great. Well, as I said, I work for an engineer. Our CEO is a trained engineer, and we have a sister company, Legacy, that provides engineering. So lots of advice for engineers. Number one, I think people have to be competent. And by that, I often tell companies that we're working with that are seeking to find engineers, women engineers or minority engineers, that competence is assumed, that we are not going to refer anyone to you that we do not believe is competence. But that means keep making sure all your licenses are up to date, ensuring that you know the latest technology, that you have access to the latest technology, ensuring that, again, let's go back to networking. I can't underestimate that. There are some wonderful advocacy groups for minority and for women, sometimes combined, sometimes separate. And the various ethnic groups often also have affinity groups and groups that help you to network. And so there's a certain power in togetherness, and people should really take advantage of that. And at McKissack, again, in my role, it's one of our great pleasures that since we like to help minority and women-owned firms get more business as part of the tactics that we use, we bring people together. So we might host networking events for specific projects or across a few projects. And, getting those relationships, keeping those relationships, it sometimes takes a little work. People still appreciate the handwritten note. Think about how you can distinguish yourself. And you can be the best engineer out there. But if people don't know you, you may not get any work from new companies. So keep your social media profile high, tell people what you're doing, and get out there and prove that you're the best engineer they can hire.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, Kim, it has been such a pleasure to get to know you. I hope the listeners have been taking notes because you have been dropping some gems. So thank you so much for being a great guest on the show.
Oh, Tiffany, it's just been a pleasure. We love talking about the great work we're doing at McKissack and McKissack. So we're happy to be here and look forward to speaking with you again.
One more thing. Is there any way, as far as getting in touch with you, I like to say that piece of it. Is there anything, how people can get in touch with you further afterwards?
Oh, absolutely. I would encourage your listeners to take a look at our website and read more and more about the storied history of McKissack and the great projects that we're currently working on, whether it's Coney Island Hospital, named after Justice Ruth Ginsburg, whether it's the Studio Museum of Harlem, or the new Terminal 1 that I mentioned earlier. I think my email is on the website, and we're happy to take questions and connect with some of your listeners if they like. And I also, on a personal level, am on LinkedIn and happy to connect with anyone out there so I can give you that information to make it easier for your listeners.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you won't miss our upcoming episodes featuring interviews with inspired women engineers, discussions about industry trends, and much more. Go to womeninengineeringpodcast.com, where you will find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, may your engineering endeavors be as remarkable as the women whose stories we're sharing. Stay curious, keep innovating, and engineer a better future.